Banayad na lagnat, sakit ng ulo, pananakit ng katawan at kasukasuan tulad ng sa trangkaso. Huwag mag-alala dahil normal, banayad at pansamantala lang ang mga ito. Kusang mawawala pagkatapos ng 1 hanggang 3 araw. Senyales ito na bumubuo ng proteksyon ng katawan laban sa COVID-19. Nabakunahan man o hindi pa, sundin pa rin ang minimum public health standards para patuloy ang proteksyon. Magsuot ng face mask at face shield, dumistansya sa ibang tao ng 1 metro o higit pa, hugasan ang mga kamay ng mabuti at madalas. Siguruhin na laging maayos ang ventilasyon sa mga lugar na pupuntahan. Para sa dagdag impormasyon, bisitahin ang DOH website sa doh.gov.ph at Facebook page. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, UNICEF at ng himpilang ito.
DXTV, Dipolo, Radyo Ronda.
This is News Night, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, a day before Bongbong Marcos takes oath as the country's next president, inaugural organizers finalize preparations and his team announces more appointments. The Securities and Exchange Commission upholds an earlier decision to shut down Nobel Peace Laureate Maria Ressa's online news organization, Rappler. And a golden comeback for Filipino vaulter E.J. Obiena. He sets the new season best in a meet in Sweden right after recovering from COVID-19. On the eve of the historic inauguration of President-elect Bongbong Marcos, law enforcement officials doubled down on security measures while the health department reiterates the need to observe health protocols for those attending the event. AC Nichols reports.
Final preparations are in high gear a day before President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. takes his oath to lead the country. Over 9,000 uniformed personnel will secure the National Museum and nearby streets. Across the museum, anybody who wants to watch the inauguration will be allowed to stay in the Intramuros Golf Course area.
Ay ating ma-accommodate ng almost 300,000. But of course, we have to observe itong social distancing. It can be less to that number.
Strict security checks will be done by the entrance along Victoria and General Luna streets. Sharp objects are not allowed. People are discouraged from bringing backpacks as well. Protests will be allowed at freedom parks, including the Liwasang Bonifacio and Plaza Miranda. But authorities warn they will respond if protest activities become hostile or if rallyists attempt to go near the inauguration venue.
Hindi ko natin hayaan na magsagawa ng mga magulo o not peaceful assembly, no? Sa labas ng Freedom Park.
Security forces are also considering jamming telecommunications signals around the National Museum. The Health Department meantime reminds those attending the event to observe health protocols, especially the proper wearing of face masks covering the nose and mouth.
Basta siguraduhin nyo lang pag nagpunta kayo dyan, kayo po ay bakunado with your booster shots para mas sigurado tayo na protektado po tayo.
The upcoming presidential inauguration represents change and hope for many people. Though health officials remind the public, COVID-19 is still here. Everyone, especially those attending the event, should remain vigilant amid rising infections. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
Ang ating... Alright, there's a little bit of a problem there. So what can Filipinos expect during the ceremony tomorrow? Chrissy Di Matulak tells us more.
The stage is set in the National Museum where the inauguration of President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos will be held. Final preparations are being done for Thursday. According to Marcos' team, the National Museum may not be the usual venue for the president's inauguration, but they will still make sure that it will be traditional. Solemn and simple, this was how the President-elect's team described how they would want the inauguration to go. According to the team of Marcos preparing the event, the inauguration will start with actress Toni Gonzaga singing the national anthem. There will also be a 30-minute military civil parade. Since early this morning, cadets from the Philippine National Police Academy and Philippine Military Academy have been rehearsing for the civic and military parade. The public can watch the inauguration at the Intramuros Golf Course at 6 a.m. The program will start around 10 in the morning up to 12 noon when he will be taking his oath as the 17th President of the Philippines. A 21-gun salute is immediately fired, after which the new President will then deliver his inaugural address. Chrissy De Matula, CNN Philippines.
Organizers providing more details on Marcos' inauguration. One of the preparations committee heads, Franz Imperial, says slight changes have been made for Marcos' inaugural address. Imperial says the president-elect was advised to make use of a teleprompter to ensure sequencing and coherence of his speech. After the ceremony at the National Museum, Marcos will proceed to Malacanang for the mass oath-taking of his cabinet secretaries and the inaugural dinner. A concert will follow as part of the Thanksgiving activity. The Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra and world-renowned classical pianist Cecil Licad are expected to perform. Imperial reveals multi-awarded designer Pepito Albert designed the incoming First Family's attires. Marcos will wear two barongs. One was inspired by the rayadillo, which was the traditional military uniform in the Spanish era, while the other is a fully embroidered barong from Taal. Well, gear up for the rainy weather. If you're planning to attend the presidential inauguration in Manila tomorrow, Pag-asa expects heavy rains across Luzon and the Visayas because of Tropical Depression Kaloy. Kaloy was last spotted 410 kilometers west of Iba, Zambales. It is seen to further intensify following Inauguration Day. Tune in to CNN Philippines tomorrow, June 30th, as we bring you the inauguration of the country's 17th president live from the National Museum in Manila. Join me and senior anchor Rico Hizon for our special coverage beginning at 9 a.m. A big sigh of relief for President-elect Bongbong Marcos following the Supreme Court's move to junk petitions challenging his candidacy. The High Court, in a unanimous decision, says, quote, Marcos is qualified to run and be elected to public office, unquote. The court makes it clear his certificate of candidacy is valid and in accordance with the law. That's why the Commission on Elections was right in its decision.
Well, yes, at least that clears that removes all of the questions that they have raised as to my qualification to run for president at all. So we knew it was coming. We didn't know it would come now, but of course I'm very glad that we can now proceed without that in the back of our head.
Marcos there speaking to reporters in Cebu after attending a mass oath-taking of local officials. For his part, former COMELEC Chairman Saidamen Pangarungan hails the High Court's decision for upholding the poll body's resolution dismissing the petitions. No word yet if petitioners will still file a motion for reconsideration. Well, President-elect Marcos names two more appointees, including outgoing Solicitor General Jose Calida as the next Commission on Audit chairman. Marcos, however, has yet to designate chiefs for other key cabinet posts. Our Rex Sumita joins us live from the Marcos headquarters in Mandaluyong City. Rex, can you tell us more about the new appointments and what reasons were given for the still vacant cabinet posts?
Well, Calida was Justice Undersecretary in the first 3 years of the Marcos administration. He also supported Bongbong Marcos and Rodrigo Duterte in the 2016 national elections. In fact, he's one of the leaders of the so-called Alyansang Duterte Bongbong at that time. Press Secretary Designate Trixie Angeles did not explain why Marcos chose Calida as a COA chief. She only cited his past roles during her press briefing this afternoon. Marcos, meanwhile, also appointed Jose Arnulfo Wick Veloso to head the Government Service Insurance System. Veloso is the president and CEO of the Philippine National Bank. He also served as president of the Bankers Association of the Philippines. The president-elect, however, has yet to designate secretaries for other key departments. Among them, the Health Department, with the country still in the middle of pandemic. The Department of Energy, Foreign Affairs, Environment and Natural Resources, among others.
Sinusuri pa po kasi nila, as you know, talaga tayo ng applications process at saka mayroong proseso para sa pag-evaluate. Dahil nga, sinasabi nyo, mahalaga yung mga posisyon na ito, hindi ito pwedeng madaliin yung proseso.
The Marcos team, meanwhile, says all is set for the presidential inauguration at the National Museum in Manila tomorrow. Preparations Committee head France Imperial says they're hoping that everything will go smoothly as planned. Back to you, Pia.
Rex and Mito there reporting. Up next on CNN Philippines, the Securities and Exchange Commission upholds an earlier decision to shut down online news group Rappler a day before the new administration takes over. And Vice President Leni Robredo prepares to step down from her post. We revisit the last 6 years of her term with Anjo Alimario. This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond headlines.
Conquering the universe was the ultimate, but there's more. Dahil tinawag ho ako ng Panginoon for a major purpose. To guide the youth, help communities, and to bring others closer to Him. Kaya I take care of my health through proper diet, exercise, and MX3 capsule. I am ready to serve. Kasi para sa Panginoon, hindi lang ako 4th runner-up. First place ako sa puso niya.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Sa dami ng taong nakalipas, salamat dahil hindi niyo kami iniwan. Dahil sa inyong tulong, mas naging maayos ang akala namin nakalimutan na. Basta't nariyan kayo, alam naming hindi mapapabayaan ang aming paghihirap para sa sarili, sa pamilya, sa kapwa, at sa bansa. Kampante kami, basta't kasama kayo.
Eyes on me everywhere, but I still take the dare. My game is always fair.
Beyond bringing power to all, we're taking steps to produce and deliver Earth-friendly energy today and for our children's tomorrow. Powering the good life. Meralco.
This is CNN Philippines. Online news group Rappler has been ordered to shut down again. The Securities and Exchange Commission upheld an earlier decision to close Rappler down in a June 28 order. In 2018, the SEC revoked the registration of Rappler for supposedly violating foreign ownership rules when it allowed U.S. investment firm Omidyar Network to hold an investment instrument called Philippine Depositary Receipts, or PDRs. Omidyar donated PDRs to Rappler's staff in a move to resolve foreign ownership issues, but the SEC says this does not mitigate or cure Rappler's supposed violation. Rappler continued to operate despite the revocation in 2018, arguing that PDRs do not give foreign ownership rights. It is business as usual for Rappler again. The news organization says it will appeal the SEC's latest decision since the proceedings were, quote, highly irregular. The National Telecommunications Commission moves to review broadcast block time deals. The regulator issued a memorandum directing all TV and radio companies to submit block time agreements for the agency's approval. Under the order, block time content should not be more than half of the station's daily airtime broadcast. The Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas, or KBP, opposed the order, saying the NTC has no jurisdiction over broadcast content. KBP plans to present its position in the NTC hearing scheduled for July 11th. Embattled media giant ABS-CBN has entered into block time agreements with other networks after it failed to have its franchise renewed by Congress in 2020. Now, these stations include TV5 and Zoe Broadcasting Network, which has since rebranded to A2Z. In other news, outgoing Agriculture Secretary William Dar says he will not relieve the 4 DA officials allegedly involved in a vegetable smuggling scheme. The officials are Agriculture Undersecretary Ariel Cayanan, Eduardo Gongona of the Fisheries Bureau, and George Culaste and Arnie Rojas of the Plant Industry Bureau. The 4 have denied the accusations.
Kung na-relieve, basta ongoing yung investigation. We have a continuing investigation and we will take note of the Senate report. Baka makatulong doon sa aming investigation.
Dar says it is up to President-elect Marcos, the next agriculture chief, if he will pursue the DA's probe on the alleged vegetable smuggling. Dar and Marcos have yet to meet for formal transition talks. Meanwhile, Customs Commissioner Ray Guerrero laments the Senate committee report listing him as among the alleged protectors of smugglers. He said the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, or NICA, confirmed BOC officials were not included in the intelligence reports submitted to outgoing Senate President Tito Soto. Soto says it's now up to the Ombudsman to look into the accusations. Organizers say the inauguration of President-elect Bongbong Marcos will be simple, solemn, and traditional. But what rituals should we expect tomorrow? AC Nichols gives us a look.
Magiging makatarungan sa bawat tao.
At itatalaga ang aking sarili
At tatalaga sa aking sarili
sa paglilingkod sa bansa.
sa paglilingkod sa bansa.
Kasihan nawa ako ng Diyos.
Kasi hanawa ko ng Diyos.
Congratulations.
Maraming salamat po.
Change comes in the country on the last day of June every 6 years. It marks a much-awaited political transition to a new president.
It tells you that your country has a stable democracy.
The highest official in the land is sworn into office by noontime. But before this happens, the public will witness a number of traditions to show peaceful handover of power. The president-elect pays a courtesy call in Malacanang. He signs the palace guest book as the outgoing president's final guest. The two are seen descending Malacanang's main staircase before heading off to the inauguration venue.
Dahil yung Malacanang is not just the building, no? It's also the office of the presidency. So yung pagalis nung outgoing president doon also signifies na he is peacefully vacating the palace so that the new one can occupy it.
The outgoing president reviews the troops one last time. A final goodbye as he reverts to civilian life. On to the inauguration proper.
Ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
It begins with the national anthem followed by a prayer.
Here we have chosen.
The Senate president then reads the results of the elections, proclaiming the elected president and vice president. As the new president takes his oath, he lays his left hand on a Bible, reflecting the country's majority Christian faith. A specific Bible typically holds personal significance to the president. In 2016, Duterte swore on a Bible owned by his mother, Soledad. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo used the same Bible her father did when he took his oath in 1961, while Ferdinand Edralin Marcos used 2 Bibles owned by his parents. After the oath, the traditional presidential anthem is played with the appropriate drum rolls and trumpet sound. The armed forces renders its first 21-gun salute to the new commander-in-chief, who then gives his first official speech as president.
Ano yung pinaka-cornerstone ng gobyerno mo? But also, it is a call for unity. Kasi ano na yun, di ba? Midterm election, how do you make people come together?
An inaugural parade traditionally takes place after, though some presidents skip the fanfare to cut costs. Back to Malacanang, the Presidential Security Group honors the first family. The new president ascends the main staircase, symbolizing his rise to the highest position in the land. In the same occasion, the president leads the oath-taking of cabinet members and other appointed officials. He also holds his first cabinet meeting. Inaugural traditions bear significance because they demonstrate a sense of democratic continuity. The occasion also reflects the responsibility and work that the new administration will take on. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
Vice President Leni Robredo bids goodbye to her second home for the past 6 years, a day before she steps down from office. What legacy is the 14th Vice President leaving behind, and did she regret running for president? Anjo Alimario tells us Robredo is ending her term in high spirits.
If I have to do it all over again, knowing what the results will be, I will still do it.
Maria Leonora Leni Robredo looks back on her 6-year journey as the country's vice president. She failed in her bid for the presidency, but Robredo says she has no regrets. Largely sidelined by the administration, and with all the attacks, disinformation, and lies thrown their way, Robredo says she's proud that she converted her office from ceremonial into advocacy-driven.
Looking back, iniisip namin ng mga staff na siguro kung sobrang dali lang sa atin mag-request ng pera, hindi siguro tayo naging ganito ka-creative.
For the 4th straight year, her office got an unqualified opinion from the Commission on Audit. She says she's both excited and sad leaving her office.
After tomorrow, makakapanood na ulit ako ng mga K-drama. After tomorrow, mababasa ko na yung lahat na librong naghihintay basahin. Pero yung malungkot for me, yung mga taong iiwan.
If there's one crucial decision that she won't forget, was the day she accepted President Duterte's challenge to lead the anti-drug war through the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs.
Kahit 18 days lang yung binigay sa amin, those were the parang best 18 days of our OVP life. Kasi talagang we worked the hardest during those 18 days. Kasi alam namin na tatanggalin ako at any time.
Robredo vows to fight the machinery of disinformation.
Kailangan magkaisa na yung taong bayan para salbahin yung ating demokrasya. Kasi kung wala tayong gagawin, gigising tayo na isang umaga na marirealize natin na wala na yung mga freedoms na pinaglaban natin for a very long time.
Robredo is leaving the political limelight, but she'll remain busy setting up Angat Buhay NGO for her dream of making it the widest voluntary network in the country a reality. Anjo Alimario, CNN Philippines.
The Duterte administration makes a last-minute move to provide relief for poor Filipinos. Officials have begun the distribution of the 500 peso monthly subsidy to cushion the impact of rising prices. The Social Welfare Department says 1.2 million people have received 2 months' worth of aid, or 1,000 pesos each. Around 12.4 million households will benefit from the 6-month program. The local currency plunges to the 55 peso mark. The peso closed at 55 pesos and 6 centavos against the dollar today. That is the weakest since 2005. The lowest the peso has ever been was at 56 pesos and 44 centavos in October 2004. Coming up on Newsnight, pole vault sensation EJ Obiena establishes a new season best on his first meet since recovering from COVID-19. Plus, the Philippines gets ahead in Miss Supranational Talent Competition with Alison Black entering the top 6. Find out more after the break.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy! With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Making life sweet is easy dahil 35 pesos SRP lang ang San Miguel flavored beer. Make life sweet with San Miguel flavored beer.
Malaking bagay yung mga farm to market road tulad ng mga expressways natin. Kasi pag humahango ka ng di-deliver, mapapabilis yung deliver niya. Konti yung expenses, makakatipid. Kami, isda yung business namin. Kailangan namin yung expressway para on time yung deliver sa market ng product namin.
Our expressways provide faster access to local agriculture and livestock suppliers. Expressways, road infrastructure plays a very significant role in accelerating agricultural production. This is one of the key components for development, as it promotes access to economic and social services, generating increased agricultural income and productive employment.
A province accessible from Metro Manila via the Skyway Stage 3 speaks of our rich culture and diverse history.
Minsan ang nasaksihan ng kasaysayan ng pagbagsak ng Bataan, ngunit mapalad ang kasalukuyang henerasyon dahil sabay-sabay nating nasasaksihan ang pag-angat nito.
Very diverse talaga yung aming tourist products dito sa lalawigan ng Bataan. Kaya napakagandang bisitahin.
Breaking news at this hour, the LTFRB grants the provisional fare hike for jeepneys across the country, raising the minimum to 11 pesos. The order will take effect a day after publication in a newspaper of general circulation. Transport groups who filed a petition say the increase is urgent amid rising fuel prices. And moving on to sports news, taking another golden leap is Pinoy pole vaulter EJ Obiena, who topped the Täby pole vault gala in Sweden on Tuesday. The athlete cleared 5.92 meters, setting a new season best right after recovering from COVID-19. Obiena will next compete in the Stockholm Diamond League on Friday. Now, on the basketball court, how will Gilas Pilipinas measure up against New Zealand in tomorrow's FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers? Gilas' head coach told CNN Philippine Sports Desk about how we're likely to see Dave Ildefonso in the match after his injury and which players are stepping up amid some notable absences.
He wanted to come with us and we welcomed him in the team just to be with the team. Maybe we will be able to get some minutes off him, but at the moment, his injury is about the same as it was before the Korean trip. Gio Chu has made, really big improvements in the last month. The fact that Ange got injured right before the Korean trip, really put pressure on Gio. He would come in for limited amount of minutes, and he was put in a hot seat going to play against Ratcliffe and Kim, two genuinely hard international players for Korea, and he's done extremely well.
Gilas lost its last match against the Tall Blacks last February 27th in the previous window of the World Cup qualifiers. Now, on U.S. television, the Muppets are promoting vaccination against COVID-19 for young kids. The non-profit educational group Behind Sesame Street released a video where Elmo, who's aged 3.5, gets inoculated. Moderna and Pfizer vaccines got emergency use approval in the U.S. this month for those at least 6 months old. In the Philippines, some COVID-19 doses have been approved for kids as young as 5 years old. And moving on to the beauty pageant scene, the Philippine bet Alison Black is in the top 6 of the Miss Supranational Talent Competition. Also on the list, Miss India, Miss Indonesia, Miss Jamaica, Miss Japan, and Miss Mexico. These contestants are set to perform at the pageant's Night of Fashion and Culture for Ukraine this Saturday in Poland. Black, who is also a professional dancer, performed a ballet piece for her talent entry. Miss Supranational 2022 will be crowned on July 15th. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as usual at 8. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Tanong ng bayan, maaari bang magbabakuna ang mga breastfeeding moms o mga nagpapasuso? Ang sagot, oo, maaari silang bakunahan. Ayon sa World Health Organization, kung ang isang nagpapasuso ay kabilang sa grupong inirekomendang magbabakuna base sa COVID-19 vaccination eligibility criteria, halimbawa kung siya ay health worker, dapat siyang mabakunahan. Inirekomenda rin ituloy ang pagpapasuso bago o pagkatapos magpabakuna. Para sa dagdag impormasyon, bisitahin ang DOH website sa doh.gov.ph at Facebook page. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, UNICEF at ng himpilang ito.
DXTD, Dipolo, Radyo Ronda.
Has your back ever hurt from lifting objects or sitting down for quite some time? You might think it was bad form or bad posture, but it could be a symptom of a very common condition called scoliosis. Scoliosis can be very uncomfortable if it isn't addressed the proper way. Now, today, we'll learn more about our spine and how to treat and prevent scoliosis. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Affecting both young and old, scoliosis is a condition that causes your spine to form an abnormal curvature up to a certain amount of degrees. Now, to help us understand scoliosis better, with us is Dr. Larry Acuña. He is the head of the spine section at the Medical City. And we also have Dr. Jericho de la Cruz, who's a rehabilitation medicine specialist from the Asian Hospital and Medical Center, as well as the Medical City. Now, start first with Dr. Larry. Dr. Larry, let's talk about the normal spine for a second here, because a lot of people have this misconception that our spine needs to be perfectly straight. Describe for us what a normal spine should look like.
It should be straight up to 10 degrees. So below 10 degrees is normal. And in the sagittal view, or on the if you look at them on the side view, there's a certain curve of the neck, the thoracic, and the lumbar, which usually like an S shape, and the lateral view.
Now let's talk about what scoliosis is. Dr. Larry, could you talk about what happens when someone has scoliosis?
So if you have yung scoliosis, to define it, is a lateral deviation more than 10 degrees. And it depends on the amount of angulation where treatment is necessary, and also the age.
Dr. Jack, I'd like to ask, a lot of our viewers may think about scoliosis and think also if this is synonymous doon sa term ng pagiging kuba.
Scoliosis is on the, when you're looking at the person, yung angulation, pagpaharap, no? So, lateral, side to side, left to right. Yun yung angulation. So, more than 10 degrees, you will consider that as scoliosis. Yung pagiging kuba naman, yung, or pagiging bayukos, it's on the front, paharap. No? So, nakukuba siya. So, it's a different plane in terms of viewing the patient. No? So, it's on front to back angulation of the spine. So it's more on the kyphosis naman ang tawag doon.
Now, Dr. Larry, earlier you mentioned that it normally happens at a certain age. Let's talk about that. Ang scoliosis na nangyayari sa pagkabata, ito ba ay isang condition that is namamana? Napapasa ba ito from the parents to the child? And kapag nangyari ito sa isang bata, what are some of the reasons why this should be addressed?
Yung scoliosis, only 10% of the time namamana siya. Kaya sinasabi namin na idiopathic because it really don't know what's the reason behind it. But most of the scientists now would tell us that it's multifactorial. So in most of the studies, the 10% lang yung cause na namamana. But sometimes we usually ask relatives kung meron sila o hindi.
Now, pag-usapan natin yung scoliosis sa mga adults, Dr. Jack. Is it possible that scoliosis could be acquired by an adult when they didn't have it nung pagkabata sila?
So acquiring it in the adult period, medyo hindi nangyayari, no? Unless you have a different problem with the spine, no? Like for example, a fracture in the vertebral body. So kung nag-fracture yun, bumagsak, and then your spine started to curve towards the right or the left, then that could be considered scoliosis, no? Pero usually, scoliosis is acquired during childhood, no, especially during the time na lumalaki ka. No, once you have your skeletal maturity, medyo hindi na gumagalaw ang spine natin.
Let's talk about now the symptoms, some of the symptoms that may point towards a diagnosis of scoliosis. Dr. Larry, could you talk about kung anong mararamdaman ng isang taong merong significant deviation, more than 10 degrees, either to the left or to the right? What type of movements are impaired because of this?
Yeah, for young patients, they don't have symptoms actually. You can only notice them with the kind of deformity like meron silang shoulder imbalance. Tapos pag pinatayo mo sila, yung arm trunk distance, yung sa may axilla, sa may kilikili, uneven yon. And then pagka pinagbed mo sila, mas elevated yung isang rib area. So that's we call it rib hump.
For those who discover that they have scoliosis later on in life, they've had it most likely since their childhood days, is it possible that it will progress to more, kumbaga yung deviation nila will become even worse, will increase in the amount of degrees if it is not addressed?
So, sa adult, pagka late mo na siya nakita, no, anything less than 30, most probably it won't progress anymore. No? Pero if your angulation is more than the 30 degree, medyo may possibility siya na mag-progress. But if your spine is healthy, there's no problem, like what I said kanina, kung hindi ka magkakaroon ng injury to the spine, and then the possibility of increasing the angulation of the spine is very minimal.
Dr. Jack, I'd like to ask also, what are some of the tests that a person should take in order to get a proper diagnosis for scoliosis?
Sa child, no, usually we will ask for x-ray of the spine, and then most probably a scoliotic series to see if it's reducible, no? So several x-ray films to see if the spine is, how to say it, sumusunod, no? Sumusunod or nagre-reduce yung angulation. Sometimes if you're worried that there is something else that's causing the angulation of the spine, you might ask for an MRI or a CT scan.
Coming up, we'll discuss some possible outcomes if scoliosis is not addressed properly. Only here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Well, scoliosis can occur in people with conditions such as cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy. The cause of most childhood scoliosis is idiopathic or unknown. Now, let's talk about some possible reasons or misconceptions about the causes for scoliosis. Now, Dr. Jack, when it comes to children having scoliosis, I'm sure a lot of parents are wary, especially yung mga pumapasok sa school, mabigat ang backpack, maraming libro, maraming dala. Could this be a cause for scoliosis?
Walang one particular reason with regards to the cause of the scoliosis. Now, when posture is involved, you might think of the spine as a tree, para siyang puno. So when you start pulling the tree to one side, it will curve that way. So, especially on the child on the growing years, kasi may mga times tayo nag-growth spurt, no? So, during childhood, nung mas bata tayo, and during the adolescent years. So, once you start having this bad posture, the tendency of the spine is to curve towards one side of the body, no? So, pakaliwa o pakanan, it depends on the posture of the child.
Dr. Larry, when it comes to the degree of angulation, you mentioned a cutoff point where it becomes severe, where surgery is addressed. But what about those na yung angle nila sort of lies between mild to moderate? They have some aesthetic nuances nakikita externally on them. What type of treatment is viable for them?
If it is noticeable already, nasa moderate stage na siya, usually mga 30 degrees na siya. But when you catch them early, like 10 degrees to 25 degrees, proper exercises and muscle strengthening would be the proper treatment. And we give them to rehabilitation medicine so they can prescribe proper exercises and muscle strengthening For young patients like 10 years old to 14 years old, you have 25 degrees to 40 degrees. We require them to have a brace to prevent it from progressing and somehow correct the deformity.
Dr. Jack, Dr. Larry mentioned na mayroong mga exercises na ginagawa, pwede gawin sa bata as part of the therapy in order to correct mild to maybe moderate scoliosis. What types of exercises do you do to your patients kapag nasa range siya na ganito?
We have this thing called the clap exercises. So that's the exercises for the angulation of the spine. So it depends on the apex, no? Which means kung saan umikot yung spine, no? Yung vertebra na umikot to make the spine angulate to one side. No? So it really depends on that. Then there are several exercises for that. Proper posture, kailangan din i-enhance yung posture ng child so that the spine grows upright, no? Hindi pa side. And then you have your core muscle exercises to strengthen the back, the abdominal, the legs, and the arms.
Now, Dr. Larry, I'd like to talk to you about osteoporosis and scoliosis. Is there a connection between the two?
Yeah, some of the studies would tell us that mas prone yung scoliotic patients to have osteoporosis. And the other thing is, you have to prevent osteoporosis among patients with scoliosis kasi in the adult years, there's the reason why the curve of scoliosis progresses with osteoporosis.
So, Dr. Larry, just to make it clear, no, osteoporosis is seen in those people with prior scoliosis, not the other way around. A lot of people might think that scoliosis was caused by their osteoporosis, especially for those in their senior years where osteoporosis is more commonly seen.
Now, the osteoporosis is mainly because of the imbalance between intake and egress of calcium in the bone. So the bone quality decreases as you age, and there's an effect of postmenopausal usually among women because of the estrogen effect. The scoliosis does not cause osteoporosis, but in scoliosis, among patients with scoliosis, there's a high incidence of osteoporosis.
Now, Dr. Larry, could you share with us some of the complications that come with scoliosis?
Scoliosis per se is not a disease. It is a deformity that when left untreated and became severe, it affects your pulmonary function and will develop restrictive lung disease.
Dr. Jack, when it comes to trying to prevent someone from having scoliosis, trying to minimize the progression of this, is there anything that is really viable, or is there something that people can do beforehand in order to prevent scoliosis from happening?
So if you're active, you grow muscles, you go in strength, no? Tumitigas yung laman. So you get more muscular, especially if your family has scoliosis, there's the propensity that you will develop scoliosis as well. But if you practice proper posture, you're active, you exercise a lot, then most probably mas maaagapan siya.
Coming up, we'll discuss the proper treatment and more prevention tips for scoliosis. You're watching Med Talk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Dr. Larry, let's talk about surgical treatment for scoliosis. What is the goal for surgery here?
So the goal of surgery is, one is to correct the deformity. Most of the deformities for correction, maximum we be able to correct it 75% of the deformity. Second, it will not progress anymore once able to surgically correct it. And that will prevent the sequela of cardiopulmonary compromise. And the patients will have a better look in life kasi physically they're good.
One of the treatments, especially those with the mild to moderate types of scoliosis, is physical therapy, rehabilitation medicine as well. But a lot of our viewers are also aware of other treatments that they may come across. Now, my question is, can mild, moderate, even severe forms of scoliosis be properly addressed through manual treatment? Yung kumbaga masahe, pupunta sa masahista para i-masahe, para i-manipulate. Is this something that can be effective, or are there some inherent risks with those who are thinking of doing this?
Okay, with spinal manipulation, study says na limited or no improvement in terms of the angulation. Because if you will consider the child is growing, no, patangkad siya ng patangkad, and if you do it once or twice, it won't really affect the angulation. No? And manipulating the spine has inherent risk on it. Especially, pwede ka mag-cause ng slip disc, pwede mong maipit yung mga spinal nerves, doon tayo magkakaroon ng problema, and then it can cause other problems other than the angulation.
Advice for our viewers here who may think their child or themselves have scoliosis: always get the correct diagnosis from your orthopedic surgeon or from your rehabilitation medicine specialist before you try and do any procedures. Okay, Dr. Jack, could you talk about traction procedures for those who are trying to look for a solution for their scoliosis? And also, could you talk more about the back brace that is prescribed for those with scoliosis?
So, with regards to the traction, there's two schools of thought. No? Merong nagsasabi it works, may nagsasabi hindi siya nag-work. No? So, basically, it cancels each other out. So, minsan, kwento namin, kanya-kanyang paniniwala ng doktor. No? It won't cause any harm, but sometimes it doesn't cause any good. With regards to the brace, mas maganda kasi naka-brace. No? It depends on the angulation that you really have to wear this brace 23 hours a day. So, in effect, it nagpo-cause ng konting traction ang brace to keep you upright, and it pushes the angulation towards the center. Kasi yung angulation, parang hinihila ka lang pataas. As compared to scoliosis, again, it's left to right curvature. So you have to push you have to push the spine towards the center. So para ka nagka-traction in effect when you're wearing a brace.
Dr. Jack, let's also talk about the strength of the muscles, good exercise, being overall active. How does this benefit someone with mild, maybe moderate scoliosis even?
So kasi our spine is technically it's the backbone. No? It's called the backbone, and the muscles are attached to the spine. No? So when you start building the muscles, then it has the support. It supports the spine. So hindi siya masyadong gagalaw. If your muscle is very taut, no, matigas siya, or you're very active, malakas yung muscles mo, hindi siya masyadong gagalaw. Pantay lang dapat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Larry Acuña and Dr. Jericho de la Cruz, for being with us today and sharing your tips as well as your expertise about scoliosis. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching Med Talk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.